pasture to the other? I mean, are they an animal that's stubborn, or, I mean, you're having to move them around?
When you're rotational grazing them, you mean, or?
Or just moving them around in that house, you said you have here, and then you gotta move them here, then you gotta move them back there. Are they easy to get along with, or are they contrary?
Well, there will be breed and individual sheep differences, but for the most part, once they know your system, they're pretty easy to work. I mean, if you got them in a big wide open space, and you want to go through a little bitty gate over here, yeah, it's gonna be a day-long project. But, you know, if you have a way to get them into a corral and through the gate, it's a lot easier. In that lambing barn, you're moving the lambs, and if you got good mothers, they're following their lambs. They're gonna follow it, I mean, so you have the right bait to move them almost anywhere. When they don't have lambs on them, then, you know, once they know your system, sheep are surprised, they have better memories than we think they are. And you know, everybody says how stupid they are, but I've kind of grown to appreciate maybe they're just smarter than we are. I've got a few sheep that they can make any project absolutely miserable. I mean, I know they look at it and say, well, what can we do to mess this deal up? And they usually figure it out. But generally, you know, the right facilities, that's why I said that alleyway down the middle of the barn, 10 foot wide, well, you've got control. They'll go down that alleyway, and it's narrow enough that you have backside control. And then if you really get sophisticated and are smart enough to work with a working dog, they can help with all of that. A good border collie or a good working dog.
Just for everyone's information, this program today is being videotaped. We will have it available, and if you provided us with an email address when you registered, we will send you the site where you can access it. We'll put it on YouTube. As interesting as we think it is, it's probably not likely to go viral. But we will have it on YouTube, and we'll let you all know where you can access it. So if you gave us an email address, you'll be getting a notification about where you can see it. That's it. Let's use up the time with these experts for questions and answers. You all, I'll pick on, if you'll raise your hand, we'll try to pull out some questions. And when the question's asked, you all figure out which one of you should answer. Charlie?
Okay, now before we get started, allow me to introduce just a couple more folks that can assist you with technical and financial assistance.
Right.
Definitely technical assistance and maybe financial assistance considered Farm Bill and all. However, we have James Reynolds. James is the District Conservation for Natural Resources Conservation Service. He covers Columbia and Fayette County. We have Todd Sewell of Hempstead and Beta counties. He's the District Conservation for those counties. I also have Randy Brown. I see him out there. He's one of the engineers that we have with the Natural Resources Conservation Service that can provide some special help. Now, the United States Department of Agriculture would like to partner with you if you intend to go into this endeavor. If you are growing grass, we have information that can assist you technical and in many cases financial assistance. We have 3 offices that can assist you in various ways. The Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is Ralph Harris here, the Farm Service Station with financial assistance, insurance type things, with Tanya Washington, and rural development can help you with cooperative type organizational structure and things like that. So with that, we're ready to receive questions. And again, we just like to partner with you as you go into this endeavor.
Mr. Cassidy, you were indicating that production is decreasing. Is consumption increasing?
Yeah, because of the large growth in ethnic populations in the United States, we have a rapidly increasing demand for land. And domestic production has had a tendency to be declining. And it's declining because most of it has been in the western range states, based around grazing public lands. And that has become more and more difficult for those producers to do. And so they have been exiting the industry, and the industry hasn't been growing in the other parts of the country. So that's why we're producing less domestically. Now, we've closed that gap or filled that demand by imported land.
That's my next question. So is there an opportunity for more importation of land?
I'm sure there is. The only thing that's probably holding it down to some degree right now is the currency value difference between the US dollar and Australian and New Zealand currency. Because they're the primary two, well, they are the only two importers of land into the United States, the countries of Australia and New Zealand. They produce way more than their population can eat, and so they are net exporters of land. And they've been exporting to the US for a long time. We reached, in the last 10 years, just the last 10-year period, the US production supplied about 55 to 60% of the consumption needs in the US. Over that 10-year period of time, and imported was the rest. Over a 10-year period of time, we're at a point this year where imported products supply 55% of all the land consumed in the United States. Domestic production supplies 40%. So, as production in the U.S. is diminished and or demand is increased, it's been met by imported product more than by domestic. But what it leads to is that if we have increased demand and tight supply, we are going to have a high market. I mean, it's reality. We have the demand there, and it's, and so that people are going to be willing to pay the price.
Ellen, do you have a question?
Has anyone used a system for have information on use it for groups? How it works and if it works?
Question is, does this system work for goats? Anybody want to make that?
My experience with goats is extremely limited, so by no means want you to take everything I say for gospel, but for the most part, we're talking meat goats. We can just about extrapolate everything that I talked about. Goats will fit, even the space requirements in the buildings, because they actually need, for their size, a little more space than sheep do, just because of their personalities. But for the most part, what we talked about with sheep will work for goats. Now, I know they're harder to restrain. They're harder to keep in the pen. The fence line feeders I showed you, half your goats will be standing on the outside and half will be in the pen. So there would be differences in how you have to construct some of your feeders and stuff to raise goats.
Let's try this. Does anybody in the audience raise goats? Okay, Marilyn, stand up. Here's who you need to talk to during lunch. If you're raising goats, and you want to talk about whether or not the system would work, that's the networking you're talking about.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Electric fence and sheep, I know it's a little bit different than with cattle, but what kind of different, what do you need to have a good electric fence to keep your sheep in?
Sheep are much harder to control than cattle. They've got smaller feet, less contact area to get that shock. You need a higher powered charger, multiple wires to be able to hold them. Cattle you can hold with one wire. Sheep and goats, you look at 2, 3, 4, more than that. And when you get to goats, you're talking a lot more wires because they're not protected and liable to get out of something. So sheep are relatively easy to control with the hot motors. When I say multiple wire power chargers with cattle because of the small feet, they don't get a good grounding, they get a good pop. The hair sheep are easier to control than wool sheep because the wool is the insulator. Hair sheep are a good thing to use with ventilators.
Do you have a question back here?
Yes, I have about 30-acre plot of land, and I want to utilize it. We want to utilize it more than what we have in the past, which is at 0. But it's mostly grass. I want to know that starting out, what would be good advice as far as if you wanted to first start out with, and how to best utilize the land as far as for sheep, and if you want to split it between like raising sheep and growing.
you have one contiguous pasture, you already have it broken up into?
Well, we have, there's a fence that goes down the middle of it, and it's a separated pasture. And that's about 20 acres over on the other side of our farm.
This is gonna go, Mike's talked about huge operations, but down here, most people don't have the same amount of land mass. So with somebody like you, I like to tell you to start off with, say, somewhere between 15 and 30 sheep. You can easily carry that on 30 acres without parasites being a problem, and usually without running out of grass. And so your feed costs would be lower also. But you would need to know that your perimeter fences were tight, like what Ralph was saying. Even if you're using non-electric fencing, and especially if you're using non-electric fencing, you're going to have really good tight perimeter fences. And then you're also going to have to think about predator control unless you are going to keep them in a building.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, that the other side of the pasture where it's already fenced, that would be, it's a good maybe 75 yards from our home. And every night you can hear coyotes, calling out in the background of it. Union County, one of the things where we do that much coyote, they're always a lot out there speaking. Is there anything, any steps you can take as far as to keep predation down?
Well, I've always had goats. Other people use donkeys, some people use llamas. I've heard horror stories about both of those. I've always been what I felt very fortunate. Every dog I've had has always worked very well. And so that's one thing that I strongly suggest that people get is some kind of a guardian animal. Now, using electric fencing will also be good predator control. Dogs train very easily to electric fencing, and so therefore coyotes do also.
Any other questions?
And I want to add on the financial end part of that, to the guy who asked the question about the 30 acres, on the lending part of that, say if you wanted to come to me for you wanted to get some sheep to put on that 30 acres. First of all, like Ms. Wilson said, you need to do your research. Find out what things are costing, find out what wires cost, and find out what the sheep are costing, find out what is your input cost and all that cost. Don't come to me and say, okay, I want to put, what do I do with this for 30 acres? I don't know. That's it's boils down to manage. You're going to have to know how to manage that piece of property to make it profitable. Right. So keep that in mind. You've got your county agents, you've got utilize these people to help you, to get you a plan. You're going to need a plan before you can market it to any land. So, keep that in mind.
I'm gonna throw in something to start with fencing on your 30 acres. Most folks think they've got fencing on their 30 acres until they start raising small limits and they figure out that fencing is not gonna work. Barbed fences or anything like that, you don't have any fencing. It's gonna have to be some kind of net wire, hot wire system to be able to hold those small limits. Their objective in life is to get out.
Yeah. We weren't so much to our chagrin, we've lost a few that way.
Let me throw this out while we're here before we get into another question. Charlie talked about the assistance that's here in this county or in Henson County. There is a USDA office in every county or the next county over that can get you assistance, whether it's a grading specialist or the landing folks or wherever. Go look in your phone book, find USDA, and you can find a source for USDA assistance, whether it's technical, financial, or otherwise, in any county in the United States.
Wonderful resource.
One question I had, I've heard the number of 6,000 bolts or jolts for electric fencing. Is that the number that we need to look for in electric fence charge?
Minimum of 5,000, and for ruminants, I like that. I like higher than that. Cattle is about 2,000 volts. You can turn a cattle, regular cattle with that. Ruminants is a higher number because of the small feet and hard to get a good blow. you know, it's like anything, it's the bigger you are, the more it's gonna hurt you. Those small animals, they got small feet, they don't have a good grounding system, so you need a sure enough, good hot charger, and the Joules is high horsepower. And that tells you how much actual horsepower is in that charger. It doesn't matter how big a charger you got, the grounding system is one of the most important things. We all our depots or anything like that, it's not a grounding system, that's a good, sure enough galvanized copper rod to make that system work no matter what charger you use.
Now, another follow-up question, for young folks that's wanting to start from nothing. We've gone to the USDA, and they really didn't give us what we was after. They hit these kids with about loans right off the bat. And what we're needing is information. You know, we're trying to develop a plan to see if we can make it work. And we've got some land that's available, and I'm asking USDA or the FSA, I'm not sure, where do we go to start?
Yeah, we only deal with loans. Now, if
Now,
you're
you're
wanting
talking about
like
the farm services stuff.
farm service agencies, you've got the loan part and you've got the program part. If you're wanting information, okay, I have an idea here. Your county extension, the budget's on everything, because you have to figure out a budget. And if they know somebody that is in that business, that would be my recommendation. Go and talk with them. Shadow a farm if they're going to be in California, sheep, goats.
I know one man that sheep in 50 miles from South Mississippi.
I mean, you can, I forgot about Mr. Fernandez, I'm sorry. He's a very instrumental resource for any type of commodity. He will help you research, yay, nay, this, I mean, he can.
But the USDA though has got some information that we can acquire on this.
Now, our part loans only. And then if you would want different types of, if you were wanting like 2,000 and stuff like that, I think, you know,
Yeah.
Let me jump in here. Let me jump in here right now. USDA, Natural Resource Conservation Station, we have conservation planners that can come out and help you plan your farm as far as fencing, what kind of things you're trying to do, the grasses, the production system, stuff like that. University of Arkansas, Extension Service, have good resources that will tie right into what we're doing. They have a lot, our friend Fernandez has very good expertise, and Wells and different ones that's around, have good expertise as far as growing small limits and doing that. We can help you on the conservation planning of your farm, on how to fence it, how to do this, stuff like that. But as far as the actual integral part of getting into a business, they're gonna have more resources than we have.
But like us in South Mississippi, we would be going for the same agency.
It should be the same agencies all the way across the United States.
You just need to look for cooperative extension and
When we
Mississippi.
tried
I think
that,
it
we was
runs,
out with the flu last week.
I think it runs through Ole Miss, but I'm not sure.
Mississippi State.
Mississippi State, okay, I know it.
That's where I would start about the Mississippi, start with Mississippi State, and the USDA, RCS offices, and all those. Should be essentially the same across the country. There's gonna be variances, but we should be able to get to that point. And they may be able to direct you to some experts like Ann or Dr. Fernandez, that are actual persons in that business that can help you get started.
And a lot of times too, man, a lot of times too, with smaller ones in the south, it's the 1890 universities that handle that. So maybe Alcorn, Mississippi might be the place I'm going to look. Mississippi State and Alcorn share a lot of resources in that regard. But, if you're in Louisiana, you might go to Southern, LSU. Here you go to University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff, not that they don't have the kind of people, but, the small ones are generally handled by the 1890 institutions in the south.
Jim?
I brought a sign-up sheet from the AFTRA program, which has several publications in it, some probably still have Ann's name on them. But that is a free service that and an 800 number that you can call. It won't be hands on the ground like the local ones, but there is some information there for more sustainable grass-based, sustainable health. And
That's
ATTRA.
And it's out
You
there.
can Google it.
It's out there at the booth. You know, there's also, right, starting this month, there's a 4-week online session on ethnic marketing and all the holidays being put on by Maryland and the University of Maine. That's starting. If you Google Wild and Woolly, Susan Shane, you can come up with that.
Any other questions for our experts? Y'all are smelling the same thing I am, aren't you? Everybody's got it fine. Yes, sir.
One thing I'd like to add, with what Ralph was saying, be sure to drop by one of the NRCS offices when you're developing plans so that we can also make sure that the manure waste, the bedding can be properly applied and that there's not any ramifications with the Arkansas Department of Pollution. And we can keep everybody, on the same page and make everything run smoothly.
And also, back to the assistance to youth, of course, the Foreign Service has the youth loan program that you may be interested in.
Yeah, invested there between 10 and 20. And that can kind of help them get started, get on with it, and they can do sheep, if they want to do sheep, or they can do
Because I
livestock,
they told her that they didn't do it for small animals.
not in that area.
That's what we were told to do. I guess we-
Are you under the 21? And it varies per area. They don't have a market for it over there, that's probably what it is. They don't have a market. I mean, we do one in this area, but only, we're conducting heat available, so we've got resources.
Can we go out, we have to stay inside our area?
I want to thank you all for your attention. I know we've had kind of long segments, but these people have come a long way to be here and share their knowledge and expertise. It's something that